Welcome back to the Ryan D. Leaf Show, everybody, the RDL Show. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the RDL Show and subscribe to the Ryan D. Leaf Show here on YouTube. Listen via podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. So, we left you Friday. We had just watched a 4-pitcher no-no by the Cubs, and we'll get into the recap of that series later in the show. But I wanted to kind of get into Clayton Kershaw. Not just him, but the idea of pitchers now versus the 90s, the 80s, whatever. Attending the game yesterday, I saw a guy who still, later on in his years, can dial it up. 11 Ks through 5 innings, ended up with 13 Ks, 8 innings pitched, 1 run earned, handed off to Bickford to close it. As they would win the series versus the Cubs. But what I noticed when they threw up some of his stats, yesterday was his 184th win. And I was talking to a few gentlemen sitting behind me around what like Hall of Fame or greatness benchmarks are. And when I grew up, it was 300 wins, 3,000 strikeouts. Those were kind of the benchmarks for Hall of Famers. 3,000 hits, if you can get to 3,000 hits on the batter side of things, right? So with Clayton Kershaw kind of winding down the end of his career, seeing that he only has 184 wins, which means he's never getting near 300, made me kind of recontemplate what you view as a great Hall of Fame-esque player nowadays because of all the changes in the way they manage the baseball games. Managerial changes, right? For instance, the no-hitter, right? Zach Davies went 6 innings and then gave way to 3 relievers over the next innings. A lot of times managers, because of the analytics and the way they go about managing these days, you are not even allowed to see the lineup for a third time again because they feel like that's where the percentage is, that's where the data leads you to say that your effectiveness as a pitcher against the lineup goes down. So I kind of want to ask this question, whether or not Clayton Kershaw is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I believe he is. The dominating fashion in which he performed at probably for about a decade was unbelievable. As good as anybody who's ever pitched in the major leagues. He was not good in the postseason. I think that has been a bit of an anchor on him. The fact that he won a championship a year ago, I think, has put a little more shine on what that career looks like. So what I want to do is I want to ask that question. That will be one you guys can answer. But also the question of the day we're going to get to is which NFL retro uniforms that they're talking about bringing back are you most excited to see? Which one is your favorite? I love the fact that my favorite team of all time, the Pittsburgh Steelers, never has to change and go to a retro uniform because they have always been the same uniform. We're watching pitchers now, getting back to the Kershaw conversation, watching pitchers now do what they do. They've dominated this year, but they're also not they're still not pitching into late innings, right? They are actually giving way to the relievers, and it's been a combination of things. And the Cubs no-hitter on Thursday night was more evidence of that. How do you determine now which pitcher is great if they do not have the benchmark stats that we used to collect in terms to hand over what a Hall of Famer should be? That should be, Sky, is Clayton Kershaw first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer, period. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's been as dominant as anybody. And there's no way he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I wonder if he's going to be a first ballot one. I feel like he will. Let's bring in Sky Guasco here joining me today on the Ryan D. Leaf Show. What he did yesterday was I wouldn't say unexpected, because I remember going to the game and I was going with my friend and I told her, you know, I don't have a really good feeling about my Cubs today because they're going up against Kershaw. And then I looked at Kershaw's record this year. I think he's like 8-7. ERA not incredibly great, you know. But yesterday was one of those performances where he made them look foolish. Like I said, out of the first 15 outs of the game that he punched, 11 of them were strikeouts. That's how dominant he was through the first 5 innings. He made the Cubs hitters look absolutely foolish. Cubs players didn't even look like they wanted to be out there because he was dealing so well yesterday. And then the stat was brought up on the big screen there. He has 183 wins. Yesterday was his 184th. No way he's getting to 300, which was the benchmark we talked about. What do you think about this now, Sky? How do we determine now the greatness of a pitcher when those stats that we grew up on are no longer achievable for these types of players?
Well, that's absolutely the case. There's no chance a pitcher anymore is going to get to 300 wins, and certainly not strikeouts or, you know, complete games and anything like that, because the longevity of how these guys pitch nowadays with pitch counts and everything else is just so far less. And I was scanning through, and we can go through the Clayton Kershaw conversation, Ryan, if you want. First ballot Hall of Fame or not, and get my reaction now, or we can do it later. Either way, but very interesting when you look it up, because a lot of relievers, like, you know, that come in middle of the game or end of the game, have similar stats to Kershaw, but he's been a starter his entire career. Baseball is just different than it was in the 90s. Guys in the 90s, I mean, guys at Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson, you know, Andy Pettit, I mean, these Greg Maddux, Smoltz, all these guys were dominating 7-8 innings nightly. I mean, it was shocking.
They did what Kershaw did yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But it's interesting that today in 2021, you know, Kershaw goes 6, 7, 8 innings, and you're just like, wow, unbelievable performance. I mean, just 10 years ago, it was almost more shocking that a starting pitcher of their caliber, obviously, first or second rotation, would be bumped in the 5th or 6th inning. I mean, that was a bad night, right? I mean, it took 5, 6 runs to get a guy booted in the 5th inning. Nowadays, I mean, you give up 3 or 4 in an inning and you're gone in the 3rd, you know, or you just have a long inning, you have a couple walks, you throw, let's say it's usually about 15, 20 pitches is too much for an inning for a pitcher. So you get up to 80 pitches by the 4th inning, just for whatever circumstance, you're usually not going to make it to the 5th. Then it comes into play with the hitting as well. Kershaw's in the National League. He can actually handle the bat pretty well himself personally, but these National League hitters, or pitchers, I should say, have to also bat for themselves, and a lot of them can't hit. So then it comes like, well, do we want to kill a batting position right now with the lineup turning back over, or has Kershaw given us enough for tonight? We'll shut him down. We'll give it over to the bullpen, and we'll see what happens. Luckily for the Dodgers, he's dominant, and he played very well, and they obviously bounced back in the series after getting no hit and then winning 3 in a row. The Dodgers needed this big time. They have a huge series coming up with the Giants next, but it is interesting when you recap even just 10 years ago, but, you know, 2030, you know, 90s and 2000s, a lot of guys you and I grew up with, you know, 80s to the 2000s, who are Hall of Famers and kind of that legendary status we got to see. It's just a different game now.
It is. It is just a different game, and I don't understand it. I don't see the data in front of me clearly. These managers and these front offices have analytic teams and data in front of them, and they make decisions that are. I mean, I look at the World Series decision and removing Snell in that game. I thought it was an asinine decision. It went with their analytics. It cost them the World Series, I believe. And I've been to a few games this year, and I've watched it happen too. I mean, yesterday the Cubs allowed 1 hit. He allowed 1 hit. It was a grand slam home run, and they were down 4-0. 1 hit, 4 runs. He walked 2 and hit a batter. So he clearly didn't have his stuff. That was through. He gave up another home run to Cody Bellinger, who has hit 2 now on the back-to-back days, which gives him 3 for the year. His bat's starting to get hot, which LA Dodgers fans have to be pretty excited about there. And he allowed 6 runs in the 2nd inning. And I really thought they were going to pull him. You know, I really thought they were going to pull him. They let him bat in the 3rd, and he came back in the 3rd, and he had a rocky left guy on 1st and 3rd, but he got out of the inning. So they were down 6-0. He got pulled after 3 innings. their starting pitcher. So it's kind of exactly what you were talking about in terms of, this is how it's going to be, and there's going to have to be new benchmarks that are set to determine what we consider greatness at the pitching position. Now, like DeGrom, what he's doing, the ERA was a .68 right now.
Yeah, it's unfair.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's literally the best in 50 years. I mean, no question. I mean, by far.
And
right
unfortunately, he plays for the Mets, right? I mean, it's like Mike Trout and Ohtani on the Angels. You're like, I'd love to see you guys in pennant races. I'd love to see you in the postseason, but it's just never happening, right? Because of who they play for, and it's unfortunate.
A big point on DeGrom as well, Ryan. I think that's a great name you put up in his dominance currently, and frankly, the last couple of years. I mean, he's been very good for a long time. A, he can't stay healthy. That's just a problem. B, he's 29. He didn't really become Jacob DeGrom that we all know until he was like 27. Kershaw's been good for a decade. Again, I think the numbers are different. When you go apples to apples on wins and losses and who's in the Hall of Fame pitchers and what Kershaw has, you're going to see some discrepancies because the games are different. But you'd mentioned pre-show, Kershaw has been the most, I would argue, over 10 years with guys like, Scherzer for sure, and other pitchers as well, who have been dominant for 5, 6, 7 years consecutively. DeGrom
Scherzer was kind of like DeGrom a little bit later in his career, right?
He's now got the resume though to back it up. If DeGrom carries us over for the next 5, 6 years, then we could start talking about it. I just think
too little. Who's the closest to 300 wins? Current active player? Do we know?
I'll find it right now because I'm actually curious.
That's interesting to see, and to see how far away from that is. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm going to guess it's not close. Honestly, I'll look it up.
And I want, who was the last 300 winner? I wonder too. That's a good one too. Those are good questions. We have a full. I mean, who would have thought that this show would have in the dead of summer would turn into a baseball theatrics? I love it.
You know me, I'm all about it.
I know you are. Okay. Well, since we're here and we're talking about the game, let's talk about the series. Last time I left you guys was before the Friday night game between the Cubs and the Dodgers. The no had just happened. We were very excited about it. I showed up Friday night looking for something similar, and it was pretty good. It was 2-1 Dodgers getting late in the game. The Cubs found a way to scratch a run across the plate to tie it up 2-2. And then in the bottom of the eighth, again, here's you're talking about where they were pitching. Arrieta threw very well. Must have got to his pitch count. They pulled him. They brought in a reliever. A reliever gave up 2 giant bombs to Pollock and then to Max Muncy. And the Cubs then lose 6-2 because they weren't able to rally and get any runs. So I walk away disappointed, but I go, hey, it's 1-1. The no-hitter overshadows the loss. We'll see what happens on Saturday. It's a late day game on Fox. Right out the gate, Dodgers score. It's 2-0. And then the Cubs battle back throughout the game like David Ross coach teams do. They continue to battle. Not a lot of scoring. If I were a Cubs fan out there, I would be a little bit worried with the lack of firepower on the offense. But I think that's kind of been the case all year long throughout the league, right? That's why these pitchers are getting checked when they walk up the field all the time, because pitching has been dominant this season. They tied it up 2-2. We walk into the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Bellinger pinch hits. Didn't start the game. Has only 1 home run on the year. His back injury has kept him out most of the season. He gets a slider that doesn't quite slide far enough outside the plate, and he hits a bomb to center field with 2 outs in the ninth for a walk-off. The Dodgers win 3-2. I go home with my head between my legs once again. But I have hope. I have hope. All right. I get to the ballpark early yesterday. I get down on the field there. I talked to my buddy Jock Peterson, who's now with the Cubs, was with the Dodgers for the last few years. breakfast buddy of mine in Studio City at Jones on 3rd every Sunday morning for a few years there. And then I talked to David Ross, just asked him about how things are going, what he expects. What I was really impressed with was what he does with Chris Bryant. I don't know if you've noticed this year, but Chris started at third base on Thursday night, started in left field on Friday night. He started in left field on Saturday, and then he started in right field on Sunday. Dude is diversified.
He could play first base too.
Yes, he's diverse. He can play all over the diamond. He kind of cooled down. Hayward had the best series of them all, and for some reason, Coach Ross kept him out of the lineup on Sunday. Well, anyway, they threw a pitcher that didn't have much. Just had a bad outing. Just had a flat-out bad outing. Gave up he walked 2, hit a batter, loaded the bases in the first, and then Lux hit a grand slam home run to really put it out of play, because they would tack on 3 more and they win 7-1 over my Cubs, and would lose the series 3-1. Though Cubs head back, they play Milwaukee, who were there battling for the first place position. The Dodgers now, and I want to hear more from you about this series, head to San Francisco to take on the Giants now. Talk to me about this series a little bit and how important. I mean, they are what? They're still 4 games back, or did they gain one with those?
Yeah,
wins this weekend?
four and a half. Them and the Padres. Yep. So the Giants and Dodgers face off for the best record in the National League. So not only are they looking for the National League West, the division that they share with the Padres, but the Giants and the Dodgers currently, and the Padres actually, the 3 teams in the National League West have the 3 best records in the National League overall. So the Dodgers have some ground to make up. But if the Dodgers get a sweep, they could tie the Giants, and then they could be looking at the best record there. Just a couple stats on the bottom here. Last 10 games, Dodgers 6-4. The Giants are 8-2. The Dodgers have outscored their opponents by 10 runs in the last 10 games. The Giants have outscored their opponents by 27. As a lifelong Giants fan, Ryan, I have to say, I don't think one time since Barry Bonds is retired have I thought of the Giants lineup as an offensive powerhouse. It's always pitching. It's always small ball. It's always stealing bags, hitting doubles, a couple of pops. They're crushing the ball this year. The Dodgers are 10-11 against the NL West. So are the Giants, and both teams are leading in average and third in average as well in the National League. So Max Muncy and Buster Posey are the 2 studs for each team. So
speaking of Max Muncy, okay, I was sitting on the first baseline and this baseball is a don't judge a book by its cover. That's baseball. Yeah. Because guess what? Mookie Betts does not look like an MVP. He's tiny. He's incredibly athletic, but he hits for power. He hits for average. I mean, and then you look at Max Muncy, and Max looks like a 1980s first baseman. He just does. Kind of roly-poly.
John Kruk.
Best on-base percentage, right, in the majors at 407. Hitting bombs, leading that team. And then Albert Pujols takes over for him. And, I mean, Albert really looks like your beer league's first baseman. He does right now. He really does. But he's helping these guys out a ton in the batting cage, in the dugout, with his experience, talking about what he's seeing from pitchers. He's one of the best hitters of all time, right? Over 3,000 hits. That's one of those benchmarks we talk about. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer because of that. Oh, yeah. Never won a championship. Did he win a championship with St. Louis?
Yes.
I don't think. Okay, good. Good. Take that back. All right. I'm excited for this series. I'm excited for the Cubs-Brewers series. I'm excited for this week because after eating about 20 Dodger dogs and 20 nachos and peanuts, I'm back on the Sunfare diet today, everybody. This morning was amazing. Yam pancakes with chicken sausage. Really good. Lunch, poached shrimp salad. So good. Dinner, Kobe beef burger. Oh, and the snack this afternoon, a pistachio bar. It's so good. So, Sunfare, personalized delivered healthy meals. Go to sunfare.com. Fill in your information, check sales representative Carl Farrell, and select the Ryan D. Leaf Show. You'll get 10% off your first delivery to your home. If you're in the Los Angeles and Phoenix area, and our friend Jonathan Rifkin, who is on the show most of the time, sent us the data that most of our viewers are from the Los Angeles area. Therefore, all of you should be ordering Sunfare and getting on the right track. It's been all about the food. I'm coming up on 1 year here, guys. July 3rd is when I started, 2020. I can't believe it's been a year. It took me about 6 months to get to my optimal weight, and for the last 6 months, I've maintained between 225 and 235, simply because of what I'm eating now. Go to sunfare.com and change your life for the better today. All right. NBA playoffs. Since we last left you, the Clippers found a way to come back. The Bucks got embarrassed in the first game. Since then, the Suns come back and win. DeAndre Ayton has become a force in this playoffs and is going to be a force down the stretch when you have to go up against the likes of probably the Milwaukee Bucks, who are very long and tall. And then the Bucks simply just explode all over Atlanta in game 2 and then make an unbelievable comeback. Middleton played great last night. They get the win. They go up 2-1 on the Hawks, and the Suns have a chance to close it out, I believe, tonight, right?
Yeah.
If I recall correctly. So the Suns could have a pretty good wait for the finals to get rested up and have a chance at their first championship ever, their first run to the finals since that 1993 run with Sir Charles and that crew.
Yeah, and once again, the Suns have an optimal opportunity right here to win this game and sit for a while. And I think the Hawks have 1 or 2 more in them. I do. They're a gritty team. I think the Bucks probably take them at this point 2-1. But the Hawks got that first one in Milwaukee. We know they're not going to back down. If Trae Young can stay hot, the Hawks have a chance. I think they steal another game or 2 and make this a series. So if the Suns can just clinch it, then they get to sit for another handful of days. And again, we said this every series. It is prime right now to get extra rest and sit these guys. And having your boy Chris Paul come back, man, has just been, I mean, the story on and off the court when he's around. When he's not around, he's the story because he's not around, but they're still getting wins. When he's around, more and more people, Ryan, are a month late to the party that you were trying to invite people to. But all of a sudden, the big talking heads on the major networks are all of a sudden like, maybe Chris Paul should have won the MVP. And I'm just sitting there like, So
who was saying that?
Yeah, Chris Paul has been phenomenal. But you're right. It's not just Chris Paul. It's the entire team. Booker's been great. Ayton's been great. So the Clippers, I think, are in trouble. But again, we've seen them go down 0-2 in every series and battle back. Again, I don't think they win the series, but they could have another game in them as well. And then the Bucks and the Hawks, man, I just think if Giannis can make a free throw, the Bucks are going to smash.
I just think that they got an opportunity at home in the Valley to close it out tonight. Suns in 5 sounds good for those Suns fans out there. That's going to be for some entertaining news cycles if Chris Paul finally gets to a finals after playing for such great teams with such great players. He's been kind of the catalyst, the straw that has stirred the drink and made those guys better. DeAndre Ayton had an unbelievable quote the other night talking about how he's been somebody who has influenced him greatly, made him a better player, influenced him a ton, and felt like a big brother that he needed in this league. Because DeAndre Ayton, though has been good in his first couple of years, what we're seeing right now, influenced by Chris Paul, is what made him the number 1 overall draft pick a few years back. So excited for that Suns team. That's what we got with the NBA playoffs. We'll see if the Bucks can continue to put the hammer down. I like your thought process here too. I think the Hawks might figure out a way. Trae Young gets hot. That team just gets hot. They figure out a way to win a game, go back and forth. Ultimately, the Bucks, I think, with their length and their defense, get to the finals and take on the Phoenix Suns. All right, staying in the basketball world. The Blazers, after moving on from their head coach, have decided to go with Chauncey Billups. Chauncey, the Clippers assistant and former Colorado Buffalo, who went on to a stellar NBA career, winning a title with the Detroit Pistons. Will become the next Portland Trail Blazers head coach. Scott's fired after a 22-40 playoff record. They were getting to the playoffs every year, lost in round five out of 8 chances. All right. Stotts was well liked, but there needed to be a change. Damian Lillard needs to get past, needs an opportunity at a title. He plays too well. He's too well received, and they got to find a way to get probably another star player to come there somehow.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's a possibility. Chauncey Billups, former player, gets the job. Becky Hammon was up for it. Would have been the first female head coach in NBA history. Interesting enough, an insider who talked about the coaching search and the interview process and the vetting came back with some great positives about Hammond, but there was also some things on the day-to-day that they didn't think maybe she could handle as a head coach yet. And that's why she may have not gotten the job, where Chauncey Billups will get his first head coaching experience in Portland.
Fair enough. I've been kind of I wouldn't say pounding the table, because we hadn't talked about that particular situation too much on the show. But in passing, I had been kind of, I live in Eugene. I'm 2 hours south of Portland. I live in Blazers country, and this is all the local sports talk radio, as you can imagine, for the last couple of weeks. So it's been relentless up here. I've been team Becky Hammon the entire time, frankly. First of all, hell of a player. I think comes the biggest thing, in my opinion, and nothing against Chauncey Billups as a player. Obviously, he's got some off-the-court issues resurfacing from 1997. We'll see how those allegations settle before we talk about them too much. But Becky Hammon has been coaching under Greg Popovich for years in the Spurs. And the Spurs are no longer the Spurs that we remember from the olden golden days. But for 20-plus years, they were, kind of the quiet – the quiet staple of the NBA, and Greg Popovich has been there for years. So maybe she's not ready yet, and I respect, people that make those decisions. But I think when she gets a chance, she will be a head coach someday, and I think a team will be fortunate to have her. I think she would have been very well received in a city like Portland, a very open and diverse city. So having the first, female head coach in the NBA, I think it would have been received very well in Portland. Personally. But it is what it is. Chauncey Billups comes in. I loved him with the Pistons teams back in the day. And he had a nice run there with the Nuggets at the end as well. So Terry Stotts, you're right. I mean, great clubhouse guy. I mean, he's one of these classic head coaches that maybe stuck around a little bit too long because people just like the guy, and that's good. That's a good trait to have, but couldn't get it done, unfortunately. As you mentioned, lost in the first round 5 out of 8 seasons. So
I really don't think it had much to do with him, to be honest. They couldn't put a roster together,
No, me neither. And unfortunately, they just couldn't get over the hump. I mean, Damian Lillard, I think personally, is a top 5 shooter in the league, but they haven't been able to have a quality big this entire time. They don't have steady defense. CJ McCollum's a fun number 2, but he's not amazing every night. He's very hot and cold, and they don't have much of a bench. They just haven't. Carmelo Anthony has been super fun the last 2 years, kind of resurrecting his career. But again, he's pretty much three-point shooter or bust. And that's just not enough to get through the West. The West is very, very thick, as we know. So Terry Stotts out, Chauncey Billups in. Let's hope, things come back clean on his side. But I think it's a good, fresh situation for the Blazers. And I think they're a solid big. Nurkic isn't the one. A solid big, depth, and another piece with CJ
That's
McCollum.
A lot.
And it is, but Nurkic could be fine. CJ McCollum might have to go to bring somebody else in for Damian Lillard. But either way, they're going to need more help. They've tried this roster for a couple of years, and they're just not able to get deep in the playoffs.
No, they haven't. All right. Questions of the day. We have 2 questions of the day, everybody. First off, which NFL retro uniform is your favorite? That's going to be a good conversation here at the end of the show. We've already had some interaction from some of our viewers. Eric Davidson and Bill Powell chiming in. We'll get to you guys' answers here towards the end of the show. And the second question, Something we started with the Open. Clayton Kershaw with the performance yesterday. Looking at some of his statistics, is Clayton Kershaw a first ballot Hall of Famer? That is the questions of the day. You guys have at it. All right. Speaking of pitchers, I was witness to the inspections coming off the mound by a lot of pitchers over the weekend. The fans booed it, even though every pitcher, when they come out of the game now, pretty much gets inspected, and it's so having said that, how terrible is it that Hector Santiago of the Mariners gets busted for a foreign substance when this is like this has been a emphasis been placed on umpires? How do you get busted for this now? You were so reliant on the substance to be a impactful pitcher that you couldn't walk out to the mound without it, I guess. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, couple things I want to digest here. First of all, we'll start with Hector Santiago. So his claim, and of course, 99% of people that get busted for something deny it. So I'm not saying he's right or he's wrong, but technically this is still ambiguous. The front office is deciding whether the sticky substance was illegal or what he claims was it was just spit and rosin. I mentioned this on Friday's show. I did that when I was in Little League. I mean, that's just the thing pitchers do. It's what you have. It's dirt, spit, rosin, sweat. It's what you got. The difference is if it was some of this other stuff, sport tack and sticky stuff that is illegal now. So the league office is deciding whether that was the case or not. He was ejected from the game mid-inning because they found the substance and deemed it illegal on the field. If he is caught and this is illegal substance, he's suspended for 10 games, which is a lot. For a relief pitcher, for a starting pitcher, that's maybe 2 appearances. For a relief pitcher, that guy could pitch 7 times in 10 games. I mean, that's a big miss for him if it's found illegal. Okay. So, Ryan, then I had a question to you. I haven't had a chance to get to a ball game yet since this has gotten in. I've been mentioning the minor league squad that I go see here locally, but they don't have it at that level. So, Ryan, you're seeing this in person. You went to 4 games over the weekend. You saw this constantly. Did you feel, as a fan of baseball, in the flow of the game, whenever it was early, middle, late of the game, mid-inning, after inning, before inning, whatever, did you feel as a fan that this was stalling the game? Was this kind of hindering your experience as a fan? Was it kind of like, man, another one? Like, this guy already pitched 3 innings. And I guess before you reply, what kind of ruffles my feathers a little bit when I watch games with this now is it's not like, why don't you just check a dude? A pitcher comes out during commercial break, folks. If you don't go to baseball games, during commercial break, the pitcher's throwing 5 warm-up pitches every single inning. Go out and see him after his 3rd pitch, strip him down, do whatever you got to do, figure it out, and then move on. Some of these guys pitch 2 innings, 2 outs, and then they check them after the fact. It just seems so weird, the timing of it. I'm not against doing it, but the timing of it is frustrating to me because the flow of the game and for the players, I think, is getting thrown off. What did you think as a fan over the weekend in multiple occurrences?
Every time they checked a pitcher in Los Angeles was after they were leaving their performance.
Okay.
They were done. So they were bringing in another reliever. So there was no flow. It didn't affect the flow at all. You could tell when it was happening because the home crowd would boo when they check a Dodgers pitcher. It was after they got pulled. They were walking off just before they crossed the line. The umpire would ask them. They give them the hat, the glove, they show their belt in their hands and everything like that. And the umpire would give them back his hat and glove, and on the way they went. While the reliever came in to throw in his warm-up pitches. So it didn't affect the flow of the game at all from where I was sitting. The 4 games I attended. In fact, if it weren't for the fans booing, I doubt I would even have noticed it was happening.
Okay. So they weren't going out mid at bat, which we've seen early in this process. First couple games they did this. They were going mid inning.
It was all after they were exiting the game. Like when Clayton Kershaw was finishing, when he struck out his last batter, walking off after the 8th inning, they checked his glove. They did his inspection as he was walking off, and the sides were exchanging the field. So
Now, another thing too, which is interesting, and we've gone back and forth about this four pitcher no hitter, Madison Bumgarner 7 inning no hitter conversations. Okay, they check Kershaw after the fact, like in the 8th inning. He's basically done for the day, and he's dominated, absolutely dominated the whole game. Now, let's just say hypothetically, which they didn't, but hypothetically they catch something on his glove as bad as hell or buckle as help, whatever. Now, in your opinion, Ryan, what should happen at that point? He's going to get ejected. But I'm just saying in general, because this is going to happen. A guy is going to pitch 5, 6, 7, 8 innings like Kershaw did, do well. At the end of the game, they're going to check him. Someone's going to come up dirty. Now, do you like erase the 13 Ks from his resume?
It's just like a guy that corked his bat for a season, and didn't get found out to the 50th game or something like that. It's just the way it is. Statistics aren't going to go away. You still got to hit the baseball. May made it easier a little bit. You still got to throw strikes. People talk about like this is something new in baseball. People have been trying to cheat and get an advantage in baseball ever since the inception of baseball. Okay, it's always going to be there, and I did not for one moment not enjoy the 4 days of baseball I got to see, except for the fact that the Cubs lost 3 of them. That was my only walk away disappointment in any of it. I was okay with great pitching. When they did hit, it's so strange to me. Like it's like Major League Baseball is no longer small ball where you hit doubles and you knock people in. It's you strike out 15 times in the club and you hit 3 home runs in the game. And those are your runs batted in. You hit bombs. You either hit bombs or you strike out. It almost seems like. So it's incredibly interesting. No one either one of those rosters is batting over 300.
Terrible,
right? So
that's terrible. I'm sorry.
Justin Turner is incredibly good, and he's at like 297. And I think he went 3 for 4 yesterday. So he's having a heck of a year. And he's a great hitter. He's always been a great hitter. But yeah, so it's a different kind of baseball. I still enjoyed going to the ballpark. Eating a bunch of junk food and watching baseball in the sun. It was a nice 4 days. I'll look forward to doing it again next year. I missed it greatly in 2020 when they did not allow fans in the stands. All right, moving on. I snuck in a cold athletic brew to the stadium yesterday, so I had a nice non-alcoholic beverage, cold beer, on a hot Sunday afternoon in Los Angeles. Brew without compromise, everybody. Athleticbrew.com. Go there and you'll get 10% off your first delivery of a couple 6-packs. Try it now. Try this great tasting, less filling, non-alcoholic beer without any of the consequences. All right. Let's continue on the baseball conversation. A couple young superstars that have really just jumped on the scene the last couple of years, and this year really making a name for themselves. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Fernando Tatis. Both guys are of the millennial generation and play baseball at a different level. Let's just say right now. It's what people like to see. And your thoughts on the next generation? We're watching it kind of take place in the NBA right now in terms of what is coming next. These are going to be the names that we talk about for the foreseeable future, and they're not, they're playing for the Padres. They're playing for the Blue Jays, right? It's not what you would consider a blue blood team in the Major League Baseball system. Talk about both of those players and what you've seen from them so far earlier in their careers.
So a couple things for maybe baseball fans out there. So both these guys' dads were big time players. Obviously, Vladimir Guerrero more so than Fernando Tatis Sr. But Fernando Tatis for the Cardinals hit 2 grand slams in 1 inning, and Vladimir Guerrero is one of the sweetest swings ever. Never wore batting gloves. He hit every single ball too. So, I mean, half the home runs he hit were balls that almost bounced or they were up by his eyeballs or whatever. Just incredible baseball player. He's still hitting jacks Ryan, in their home country at 52 years old, just in case you're curious. So Vladdy Jr., playing for the Blue Jays, batting average third in the major league with batting average. He leads the major leagues today with 26 home runs, and he's first in runs batted in. RBIs with 66. Fernando Tatis Jr. is second with 25 home runs, and he is fifth with 55 runs batted in as well. And Shohei Ohtani, of course, in the mix as well on those. What's interesting about both these guys is you're right. They are absolutely this generation's two of, and there's a few guys, but two of this generation's superstars that, barring injury, should be very, very good for 10 years at least. Hopefully 15, because it's baseball and you can have long careers, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, both of these guys were invited to the home run derby coming up in July, but they both opted out of the home run derby. Now, I'm old enough to remember when Ken Griffey Jr. was, at the peak, right? Backwards hat at the home run derby, hitting bombs constantly. And it was almost unfathomable that somebody would be invited and not go. You get invited, you go. It's a fun thing. It's like the Pro Bowl or whatever, right? Like it's an all-star game.
Why do you think that is?
So now we go with the pitcher analytics and all this stuff. Too many, and I don't have the stats for this right now, but it is something that I'm just kind of curious. So maybe I'll bring it up some other show.
Too many swings?
Too many hitters who have been amazing in the first half of the season. That's why they get invited to the home run derby. They swing an extra 100, 150 swings or whatever throughout the tournament. If they go to the end, they come out in the second half of the season and they just don't have the mustard left on their bat for whatever reason. You could blame it on swings, maybe an injury during the derby, eyesight's off. Maybe they're throwing, 78 mile an hour fastballs so that they hit home runs on purpose. So maybe their timing is off now with their eye or something. There's a lot of different research that has come out on this, but too many hitters, great hitters, have been dominant for the first half of the season, go to the derby, come out of the derby, and are no longer dominant. Sometimes not even good, and they just completely fade out. So as a couple years ago, like Ryan, in football, some players now opt out of the Pro Bowl for whatever reason. And now in the home run derby, players play the all-star game, but in the home run derby, they have opted out. And I think a lot of people are worried about their swing. It's not the same swing. It's like it's not softball to baseball, but when you get out of playing baseball your whole career for 15, 18 years and you start playing.
Yeah, but it's the same as softball. It's the same as BP.
It is, but I think it's so much more. And BP, you get out there, you hit your 10, 15 hacks and you're done. If you keep going, I mean, these guys have 50, 60, 80 swings if they go all the way to the end there. And Pete Alonso, who won the thing 2 years ago, of course, last year was canceled, but 2 years ago, Pete Alonso won it. Vlad Jr. had one less than him and came out and was like, he won the thing and was like, I don't know if I'm going to do that again. He is going to this year, but Vlad Jr., who came up one short of winning the whole thing, has opted out. So, unfortunately, again, this is another thing for baseball as a fan's reaction that if I'm a 9-year-old kid obsessed with baseball, which I was, almost 30 years ago, these are the two guys I'm watching the game for. I'm watching the home run derby for, and they're not going to be in it. And that's unfortunately a red X on baseball for whatever reason they're deciding to opt out.
Well, we need somebody to spice it up, and it's going to be Ohtani, I think, who
absolutely
who dragged Bunch for a hit last night.
Awesome. So awesome.
Steals bases, pitches, and hits bombs. He has spiced it up like nobody's business. Kind of like our sponsor, Bomb Banana, spices it up. SeekTheSpice.com. Banana-based, not to be confused. Banana-flavored hot sauce. Everybody, put it on your bland food. Put it on any kind of food. I put it on a lot of my breakfast. It's incredibly good. You have two versions. You have one that's more of the mild in the white labeled bottle, and then in the red label bottle, they call it the Mooey Mooey, a little more spicy. Go to SeekTheSpice.com. That's SeekTheSpice.com, all one word. And today you can receive 10% off your first order by using the promo code LEAF, L-E-A-F, like on a tree, at checkout. Bomb Banana hot sauce, everybody. Check it out. All right.
How is Bomb Banana on a Dodger dog, Ryan?
I have not had Bomb Banana on a Dodger dog. We did bring a couple Dodger dogs home last night, but not last night, but Saturday night. I went with my trainer, and she brought a couple back for some friends of hers. If she would have given me one of them, I probably would have tried a little Bomb Banana hot sauce.
We'll have to try that for science on the show soon.
Yes, it's all about science. All right. Before we get out of here, guys, let's get to the questions of the day and talk to you a little bit about what your answers were. First, retro uniforms. All right, the NFL, and this is a discussion, right? Which NFL retro uniform, from helmet to uniform, is your favorite? Now, the reason why this had gone away is because the NFL, in terms of wanting to make the game safer, had limited the teams to one helmet. Now, if you go to college, they wear 20 helmets in the season. Mm-hmm. They'll get the new helmet at the beginning of the week. They'll play it at the weekend. The NFL made it very clear that we are going to give you one helmet. It's going to be fit to your head to protect your brain in a very violent collision-based sport. Therefore, we can't have revisionist history and retro uniforms because we can't have different looking helmets. We can't have a different colored helmet because you're only wearing the one the entire year. Well, I don't know what's changed. Whether they feel the safety of the helmets have gotten better. I still, it doesn't matter what kind of helmet you get, your brain is inside your skull. So no matter what you have on the outside protecting it, when you have a concussion, that means when you hit the ground or hit something else, your brain inside your skull bangs against the inside of your skull. Unless you find something to protect your brain inside the skull, the concussions are still going to exist. All right. So they are going to the fan-friendly former historical uniforms. That means new helmets. So I don't quite understand what has changed, whether the NFLPA, who's supposed to be lobbying and advocating for the players, acquiesced to this, okayed this, but it's happening. And what, 22-23 is the season that it's going to be instituted. And of course, right off the bat, the NFL and all the social media platforms and the team platforms are popping up their current star players in the throwback uniforms. Derrick Henry in the Houston Oilers uniform. Russell Wilson in the throwback Seahawks uniform. Tom Brady in the orange-sicles, and that's our friend Bill Powell, who answered the retro has to be the creamsicles, right? With Brady, oh my God, straight money, right? Yeah, I mean, it would look pretty good. If you remember correctly, years back when Brady and the Patriots went back into the throwback uniforms, when the red jerseys, the white pants, white helmets with the Patriot center over the ball, that was pretty cool.
That was also coincidentally, or maybe synchronistically, however you think about it, that was arguably his best single game of his career that day too. He threw like 6 touchdowns or something. So he had 500 plus in the snow.
The Titans, right?
Yeah. It was absolutely unnecessary. The another one here, Eric Davidson, love the retro Dallas Cowboys uniform with the white shoulders and the single star, even though I hate the Cowboys. Well, Eric, we appreciate you putting your differences aside for a good uniform. The creamsicles are definitely a favorite. And for me, Ryan, I think the creamsicles specifically comes down to what the Buccaneers were in 1976 when the Yucks, right? When they came in, lost 23 in a row, I believe, to start their franchise, turned it around 2002. They get the first Super Bowl. And then of course last year with Brady, but the uniforms and the Buccaneer and the color scheme on the helmet, I like a lot. I do like the Patriots. And I do like the Oilers throwback. I think what's interesting about the Oilers Titans, though, is the Oilers and Titans, although the same franchise-ish, are different teams. The Buccaneers, the Patriots, the Eagles, the Jets, the Giants, the Broncos. I mean, so many of the other teams, the same team with a different uniform scheme. I remember when the Buccaneers and the Broncos changed their uniforms one season, early 2000s, or was it 97 or something? And then Elway went on to win the 2 Super Bowls in the new fresh uniforms, the dark blue with the orange slash down I thought that was so cool when they did that. And nowadays it's just like college, and the Ducks here in town are really the prime example. But there's so many uniforms all the time. Right. It's almost like, and you mentioned your Steelers. Yeah, the Steelers have had one uniform-ish, but they have the bumblebee ones as well that you see every once in a while, but like the Packers, the Bears, the Vikings, some of these, the Raiders, 49ers for the most part have not changed much through their entire franchise history. So Ryan, there's a lot to choose from. Actually, I like the one right behind you, to be honest with you, the old school Chargers with the bolt and kind of that college number like you have behind you, the baby blues, of course. What's some of your favorite retro uniforms all time?
Let's see here. The Houston Oilers. I like the Warren Moon Houston Oilers look
Earl
with
Campbell.
that baby blue and the white with the red. I like those unis. Like the Rams back in the day with the Los Angeles Rams true look there. I think is pretty great. I'm just I've been a diehard Steelers fan my whole life, and they've never changed. The fact that they have the logo on one side of the helmet, the black and yellow, it's just it's simple. Nothing changes for me. I love their road unis. I remember when we played them my final game in San Diego, when they walked onto the field with the yellow pants and the white jerseys and that black helmet. It's pretty great. Pretty great. I like it a lot.
That's awesome. I got a bunch of favorites, I guess, but if I had to choose one, I think it's going to be the cream school as well. I agree with Bill. But I also like I like the old school Patriots, and then if we're allowing it, then I'll go with the old school Oilers as well.
I'd like to that if I were a journalist and Roger Goodell or DeMaurice Smith is answering questions around this concept, I want to ask that question. Why now? Are the helmets safer? I know that was the reason why we stopped going to throwback uniforms, because you wanted every player to wear the same helmet throughout the year because it was for safety reasons. I'd like to know the answer as a former player, not as a fan enjoying a bunch of different uniforms during the season, because as a fan, I love it. I love to see those types of things. But as a former player and a member of the union, I'd like to know, are you now putting players' wellness in more harm's way? So, all right, before last question we had, is Clayton Kershaw a first-team Hall of Famer? We had really one answer here from Eric Davidson. He said yes, Kershaw is certainly a Hall of Famer. Hard to believe that an 8-time All-Star won't make the Hall of Fame. All-Star games for me, are kind of like Pro Bowls. There's a bit of a popularity contest in those things, so I'm not necessarily winning Cy Youngs, which he did, dominating during the season. I look at the postseason and his struggles, and that could be an anchor of sorts. Winning the title last year, regardless of how much he was pretty good in the World Series last year and during the playoffs last year. It wasn't the same kind of Kershaw that we've seen in the playoffs, though he's been asked to do a lot in the playoffs. He's probably thrown on 3 days rest more than any other pitcher because he was so dominant and he was so good, and they needed to use him for the Dodgers to try to eke out and win a series. And your body just, when it's used to getting 5 days rest during the season, you asked to come back, you're going to have a little less. And these hitters are so good, especially around playoff time. If you're a little less than what you are, they're going to take advantage of it. I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think what he's been able to do for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and in particular, if he stays with them for his entire career, I think it's a great fit for him.
Yeah. 3-time Cy Young Award winner, MVP. He's won over 20 games twice in his career, which again, Ryan, we're talking about pitcher benchmarks. You don't see that now ever. Like right. You don't see guys touch that ever anymore. And he's done it, twice earlier in his career. He's only lost double-digit games in one particular season. So when I think of first ballot Hall of Famer and I think Dodgers pitchers, you immediately have to think Don Drysdale and of course Sandy Koufax. And Ryan, I was curious. We were talking pre-show, and you're right. He only has 184 wins. I'm like, man, that's like just about half, or 60% of that 300 benchmark. How close do you have to be? How many other Hall of Fame pitchers are in the Hall of Fame with less than 300 wins? And for lack of a longer conversation, a lot. but a bunch of those guys are relief pitchers, Raleigh Fingers, Dennis Eckersley, guys like that.
Mariano Rivera.
Thank you. I compared him to Sandy Koufax, right? We'll do apples to apples here. Dodgers pitcher and Sandy Koufax and Clayton Kershaw. Sandy Koufax in his Hall of Fame career, 165 wins. So less than Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw has 184. 165 wins for Sandy Koufax, 2,396 strikeouts. Kershaw has 184 wins, and he has 2,650 strikeouts. So Kershaw already has better numbers significantly, frankly, than Sandy Koufax did over his career. And he's got the Cy Youngs as well. So I disagreed with you quickly pre-show because I want to do a little more research. This quick stat here without doing any more, guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer, absolutely.
He's been special. He really has. He's been and it's been such a great community member here in the Los Angeles area. I've watched him pitch twice this year. He made the Reds. I went to a Reds game earlier this year when they played the Reds. He made the Reds look foolish, and again yesterday he made my Cubs look like they were swatting at flies. They didn't know what they were getting from him. He was low in the zone, had a great breaking ball, mixed it up. Just was, like I said, 11 strikeouts out of the first 15 outs in the 5 innings that he pitched to start. I looked up there and they had the K streak going, and it was 11 Ks through 5 innings. And I was just like, this dude's dealing. I got to give him some respect. This is it's been fun to watch.
I want to answer one more question we had from the show before we get out of here, Ryan. Last 300 game winner, Randy Johnson. He accomplished it with my San Francisco Giants back in the day. And I did have, I might have gotten rid of it now. I did. Sorry. The closest to 300 wins is Verlander. And I'll just say this. I forgot the number, but he's not close and he's not going to get it. So,
is it in the 200s?
Oh yeah. High 200s. But he's not going to get 300. I'll bring it up for next show, but I would be shocked if anybody gets 300 wins again. It's just a different game.
Well, I tell you what, I told David Ross yesterday if he needed a righty for 3 outs, I was ready for him.
What are your pitches, Ryan? What are your pitches?
I threw a nasty curveball. I threw a fastball that moved pretty good, and then I threw a palm changeup. That was
circle change. That's my jam. Yeah.
That was my go-to. If I would have gotten deeper into the world of baseball, if I would have played really in college and stuff, I probably would have had to develop some other pitches. But I had a nasty breaking ball. It would start high and break along the zone, make a guy back out of there, and then my fastball really kind of moved up and in, which was great. It really, awesome. Especially on righties. And when you're in Montana, you didn't face many lefties for whatever reason. There wasn't many lefties you faced, and so when you faced them, that ball broke in on their hands, and a lot of ground balls and easy outs for me. So, all right, everybody, thanks for being part of the RDL show today. We'll be back Wednesday. My brothers are in town, so maybe Jeffrey Leaf and Brady Leaf, former Oregon Duck quarterback, may make a little appearance. We have a golf game after the show that day, so maybe they'll make a little surprise appearance and say hi. From everybody here at the RDL show, thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great couple days.